locations around the world have taken on symbolic names. These locations, which have hosted many civilizations throughout history, have had a profound impact on cultural development. Many important personalities lived in these countries, and many historical events occurred. One of the identified geographies is the Egyptian terrain. It is still one of the most dynamic sites today, just as it was in ancient times. Egypt, with a land area of 1 million square kilometers, is unquestionably one of the largest countries in the Middle East. It also has the characteristic of serving as a bridge between the Middle East and North Africa. Egypt's topography dates back to 10,000 years ago, when it was a thriving region. For example, from the pharaohs to the Mamluks, or from the Ottoman Empire to Napoleon's France, it has served as a strategic center for numerous vital states. Among these civilizations, the pharaoh era stands out the most. Indeed, when you think about Egypt today, the first thing that springs to mind is the Egyptian pyramids from the period of the pharaohs, which have attracted millions of tourists. The Egyptian pyramids are such an important legacy that they have been designated as one of the 7 wonders of the world and have retained their significance over thousands of years. Egypt, with its 1 million square kilometers of territory, contains historical legacies and remnants from nearly every state. If you visit Egypt, it's worth noting that the pyramids are located in the Giza neighborhood of Cairo, the country's capital. If your interest and curiosity about ancient Egypt extend beyond the usual, you can visit the Egyptian Museum in Cairo's heart to see the largest collections of ancient Egypt on display. This museum displays items and fragments from several pharaohs, notably Tutankhamun. Similarly, as throughout history, the Nile River remains one of the country's most important economic and geographical emblems. Despite Egypt's cosmopolitan framework, which has housed numerous cultures throughout history, today's inhabitants are primarily Muslim. They achieved independence in 1922 and established the Arab Republic of Egypt in 1953. Egypt currently has a population of 111 million people and is located in the northeast of North Africa. To the west is Libya, while to the south is Sudan, a problematic country. Furthermore, on the eastern side of the country, the never-ending chaos of Israel and Palestine continues. Ignoring the geographical instability, Egypt is at a unique location. For example, they have gorgeous coasts that reach to the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. The country offers a variety of tourism attractions, including historical landmarks, beaches, and desert tours. Tourism is a key revenue generator for Egypt. However, it is recommended that you carry at least $2,000 in cash in your wallet at the Egyptian airport. Occasionally, such procedures are used in the country, and they want to assume you are there as a tourist. As a result, the police may demand to view the money in your wallet. They also want to see printouts of all your reservations for Egypt at the airport. The taxi from Cairo airport to the city center costs $30. Of course, with some negotiating, you can immediately reduce this sum to $15. On the other side, the spring months are the best time to visit Egypt because going in the middle of summer can be a negative experience. During the summer, Egypt is completely under the impact of desert conditions, with temperatures reaching high levels. As a result, your skin may completely burn while riding a camel in the desert, and you may develop skin diseases. I noted that Egypt is a Muslim country. Nonetheless, the country's everyday life routine does not strictly follow an Islamic framework. One of the primary reasons for this is the country's positive attitude toward foreign currencies among Christians and other groups. One notable indicator of this is that alcohol is permitted in public places except during the month of Ramadan. Of course, this does not entail acceptance of openly wandering around the streets with alcohol bottles. Furthermore, if a person walks around in society wearing excessively revealing apparel, they may risk verbal or physical censure from police and the public. Because Arabic is the most widely spoken and officially recognized language in the country, you will most likely hear verbal critiques in that language. Cairo's urban atmosphere might startle you in unexpected ways. While one portion of the city remains in the primitive conditions of hundreds of years ago, as you walk from the countryside to the city center, tall skyscrapers greet you. People walk around dressed in both modern and traditional Middle Eastern attire. Women are mostly veiled, and their faces are visible. Every road in the capital has open stores and street food. Of course, the majority of these delicacies are produced using the shop's homemade items. It is entirely up to you whether or not to eat, as no one can guarantee the sanitary manufacturing of those foods. However, places selling street food do not take hygienic precautions when making your food, and they handle it with their bare hands. As a result, I recommend not expecting too much sanitation in Egyptian street cuisine. Unfortunately, the narrow streets and roads are not clean enough, and the areas are littered with waste. Even in the country's most congested places, I believe the municipal system is inadequate. Or maybe Egyptians litter excessively and communities struggle to keep up with the pollution. Nightlife in Egypt comes alive with street walks and entertainment. Night entertainment includes various local shows and live music venues such as folk song bars. You go to a venue, eat, drink, and watch dancing performances. If you're expecting for nightclub-style drunken entertainment, your expectations may be disappointed in Egypt. Aside from that, the streets are bustling, even in the late hours, and you can see people roaming around at any time. It's also worth noting that more than half of the country's 100 million inhabitants live in poverty. 1 out of every 2 persons has a monthly income of less than $400, whereas those who make a lot of money own businesses or work with tourists. It should be emphasized that women in Egypt are also actively participating in the labor market. For example, women make up the vast majority of workers at public markets. They typically try to sustain their families' economics by selling their produce on the street. Of course, if you're heading to Egypt for sightseeing, there are a few things you should be aware of. As you are aware, Egypt experienced the Arab Spring almost 11 years ago. Since then, the country has experienced numerous political changes, and the anarchy has persisted for an extended period of time. Despite this, the Egyptian government had to keep tourism, one of the country's main industries, afloat. To ensure the safety of visitors to Egypt, strict security measures are implemented. For example, it is not recommended that someone travel to Egypt alone without joining a tour. When you join a tour program, you will be accompanied by dozens of individuals, including your guide and police escorts. This way, you are not vulnerable to fraud or placed in a life-threatening position. Despite this, street vendors approach you when visiting important temples, resulting in a hectic situation. Especially if you have more than $10 in your hand, practically everyone will approach you and try to sell you something. If you wish to travel alone in Egypt without relying on an agency, your task gets more difficult. For example, if you have professional cameras on the streets of Egypt, you cannot film freely because they believe you are there for other goals, such as criticizing the government. As a result, if they find equipment in your backpack, they will strongly believe that you travel to Egypt to spread anti-government propaganda. This scenario does not only apply to indoor areas. In Egypt, there are checks at every step. If you are not going on a tour, you must verify that you did not come to Egypt to topple the government at each checkpoint. Furthermore, to film a documentary in the city, you must submit an official application to the Egypt Press Office. In light of all of this, civilian police maintaining Egypt's security, as well as personnel at checkpoints, have become so worried that it feels like the IQ wires in your head are on fire. Ultimately, you cannot capture films on congested streets such as Tahrir Square. If you try, they will confront you and force you to remove the videos. That is why no traveler dealing with YouTube visits Egypt. Unfortunately, security concerns in Egypt aren't the only issue. Excessive security measures aren't the end. Every time you need to spend money in the country, local merchants try to squeeze more out of your pocket. Be cautious in markets, restaurants, museums, and taxis, as these situations are common. Traders might easily influence you, leading you to spend more than the market value for a $10 souvenir. As a result, even if a thing appears cheap to you in Egypt, you must negotiate. Similarly, hourly costs for camel tours of the pyramids are continually fluctuating. There is no fixed pricing. For example, if you paid $30 for an hour camel tour 1 hour ago, the price may rise to $40 or fall to $10 an hour later. As a result, camel owners set up a stock exchange depending on the number of tourists during that time period. Egypt's lack of regulations extends beyond this. For example, suppose you reserve a room in Egypt through a well-known hotel registration website. The hostel accepts cash from you and then deletes your reservation record. So you've never gone to that hostel and can't rate or comment on it. Not only do you never have access to true information during hotel reservations, but you also escape income tax because you are not on the record there, especially in Cairo. In my opinion, you should never organize a place to stay in Cairo. Another reason for this is that you are constantly exposed to horn sounds in the center. Horns never stop in Egypt's congested regions, and individuals drive as if they were fleeing a fire. Almost everyone has a need to get somewhere. There is no regard for pedestrians. There is no good pedestrian crossing, and the traffic signals for pedestrians are inadequate. People, motorcycles, and pedestrians all traverse the same square in completely uncontrolled fashion, adding to the city's commotion and disarray. If you are a person who is curious, you will naturally want to know the reasons for these driving behaviors. Yes, the country has a population of more than 100 million, with Cairo housing 20 million of them. We can simplify this scenario by correlating it with the population, which has resulted in comparable problems in India and Bangladesh. Another possible explanation for this chaotic atmosphere is a lack of education and etiquette. While we're on the subject of traffic, we might state that most used vehicles in Cairo are between 15 and 20 years old. In the country, both the buildings and the cars look very old. From a distance, certain structures in particular give off the impression that they may fall if you blow on them. Furthermore, the city's air is of poor quality. Dust storms from neighboring nations turn Egypt's air grey, and when you take a deep breath, you inhale dust rather than oxygen. Despite these terrible issues, Egypt remains one of the best destinations to visit since it has a very distinct vibe. Street food alone is a significant element of this atmosphere. If you are visiting with a significant budget, you can enjoy the best of the country's attractions, visit its historical sites, and return safely. Thanks for joining me on this journey, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content. Where should we explore next?